Hope you're all doing great. As you know, every Tuesday we go live and we talk about all of the things that you need to know to add 6 figures of bookkeeping and advisory revenue to your business in 6 months. Okay, so there are 5 keys to doing that: lead generation, how to handle consultations, how to price your services, how to deliver advisory services, and then finally, how to remove yourself from the day-to-day by leveraging people and processes. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about the 2 things that you must do on every consultation call to close more deals and to close them for higher fees. If you do these 2 things right, you'll just be begging to be put in front of a business owner with a problem you can solve, and you'll close every one of them. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We go live both on YouTube and in my Facebook group. So if you're on YouTube, be sure to head over to Facebook and join my Facebook group. We've got lots of great content in there. And if you're on Facebook, I encourage you to head over to YouTube and subscribe to my channel, where we're adding new videos every week covering all of these topics to help you grow your business. Okay? Also, if you're on Facebook, there is a link on this video that if you want to comment, it will enable me to see your comment. Okay, so click that link and authorize Facebook permissions. Very cool. And as we go through things today, feel free to ask questions. Okay, type in the comments both on YouTube and Facebook, and I'll answer questions as we go. And especially if you're on YouTube, but even if you're not, when you head over there, hit that subscribe button to get notified of the new videos as they come out. So as you know, I've worked with over 3,000 people, getting them, helping them start and grow their bookkeeping businesses, and many of them are doing over 6 figures in revenue. So the information we're going to be covering today is actionable stuff that you'll be able to use on your own today. Okay, so it works. Some of you watching are probably in my mentorship program. You've seen people with those 100K awards I give out. I really want to give you all the information you need to be successful. Okay, so again, today we're going to be diving into the 2 things you must be doing on every consultation call to close more and close them at higher fees. So with that said, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. I've got my notes down here and we'll run right through it. So let's start with how a typical consultation call kind of goes. Okay, this isn't necessarily the right way, but it is kind of the most common way of handling these consultations. And I'm tripping over my cables here. And if you want to know the proper way to handle consultations, kind of an outline, we'll be talking about that in another video. But we're going to talk about one specific piece of it today. The typical call, usually there's something like, you might say hello and build rapport. Again, this isn't the best way to handle a call, but it's the typical way. It's the most common way I see people handle these calls. The second thing that you do is typically something like, tell me about your business. Tell me about your business. The third, you'll probably get into pain points. Okay, we've all been told we need to really focus on the pain, so a lot of people focus on pain points. We'll dive into that, and then we might go into asking some questions about the scope of the work to be done. Okay, and then maybe we'll go into, maybe we'll give a fee range, maybe we won't, and then, scheduling another call, asking to review their QuickBooks, things like that. This is how a typical call will go. Again, another video on my YouTube channel will go over the proper way to handle this, but this is the most common way. And the area here where the call is either won or lost, the most important area here, most people think that is the fee. If you give a fee on the call, which you really should be aiming to do on the call, but the people who are giving fees, they typically think that the call is won or lost here when they give a range. Okay, something like this will be in the neighborhood of $1,200 to $1,600 a month, depending on what I see in your QuickBooks file. That's not correct. Okay, that is not where it's won or lost. It is won or lost right here. Okay, right here is where the entire call hinges on. All right, if you dive into their pain points, if you dive into, and we're going to get a little bit more specific here because I don't really like to say pain points as much as I like to say problems. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is, the first thing of the two things that we must do on this call is to really find the real problem. Both things that we're going to be talking about today relate to this pain points here. Okay, so this section should be replaced by finding the real problem. Okay, and I'm going to underline real a lot of times. Okay, because we really want to find the real problem. Most of the time when we get on a call with prospects, they'll be talking about, well, I need a bookkeeper, or I've been doing it myself, so I just need somebody to take it over. And that's not necessarily the real problem they're having in their business. Every business owner has a problem. Okay, everyone has a problem, and it goes much deeper than needing a bookkeeper. Even business owners that are making all kinds of money have a problem. Okay, there's some problem. They're either working on their business 50, 60 hours a week, maybe 40, but they'd like to work less. They'd like to grow. Everybody wants to be growing. Every business owner out there has a problem, and it's our job to find the real problem. Okay, and we find the real problem by asking questions. Okay, asking questions, asking really good questions until we get a specific answer. Okay, so the real problem is going to be a very specific problem. Needing a bookkeeper isn't very specific. Okay, not getting reports on time isn't specific enough. And it takes time to develop and to practice asking good or the right questions, but the main guidepost that you should be looking for, because you'll be like, well, when do I know if I've asked the best question? When do I know if I've found the real problem, the most specific problem? And that will be the point where you can assign a dollar figure to it. Assign a dollar figure to the problem. If you can assign a dollar figure to that problem that they're telling you, then you've gotten specific enough. Okay, so that's really what we want to be doing here. And I'm going to run through a couple of examples. So this is a little bit more concrete. Okay, and definitely feel free to ask questions in the comments as I go, or for clarification, and I'll answer those. So my wife's a chiropractor, as you may know, and I work with a lot of chiropractors. I handle their bookkeeping. And so we'll be talking, and the conversation goes something like, because they're typically one-man band. I work with a lot of one-man band chiropractors, and they're typically doing their own bookkeeping. And then they get to a point where they either feel like they're not doing a great job. Any business owner who's doing their own bookkeeping who thinks they're doing a great job, deep down they don't believe that. They always wonder if they're doing something a little off. But anyway, they either feel like they're not doing a great job or they're spending too much time on it, and they'll reach out, we'll talk, and I'll ask them, what, they'll say they're looking for a bookkeeper. I say, why are you looking for a bookkeeper? And they say, well, I've been doing everything myself. Okay? Well, that's a problem. They shouldn't be doing that. They should be working on growing their business, getting more patients. That's obvious. But can we assign a dollar amount to that? We can't. And so we want to continue to keep asking questions until we can do that. And this is going to be a more simple example. I'll go into a little bit more detailed example later, but we'll ask a question. Okay, well, approximately how long is it taking you to do your books? How much time are you spending each week? And a common answer I would get is 2 hours. They spend 2 hours a week on their bookkeeping, which equates to 8 hours a month. Okay, so that's great. Can I assign a dollar figure to that? Not yet. Not until I can ask one more question, get the answer to one more question. That is, okay, well, tell me this. When you're seeing patients, what kind of hourly rate are you realizing? And they'll say something in the neighborhood of $200 an hour. When you talk about seeing patients and how much they're billing them and how long it takes to see them and what they're charging for that, $200 an hour is a common example. So now what I've found is that we've got 8 hours a month, and they bill out approximately $200 an hour, which means they are missing out on $1,600 of revenue because they're spending that time doing their bookkeeping. We've now assigned a dollar figure to that, and we've made it very, very concrete, okay? And walking through this process, it gets the prospect thinking in a way that they've never thought before. A lot of people that we talk to, they're not, even though they should, they're not thinking about the opportunity cost of doing their own books. Okay, so this is an example of asking more and more specific questions until we can assign a dollar amount to their problem. Okay, their real problem is that they're focusing on they're spending 8 hours a month on their books when they should be generating revenue at a rate of $200 an hour. That's the real problem, and it's a problem that we can assign a dollar amount to. Okay, so that's for business owners who are doing their own books. Okay, doing their own books. You might be asking, well, what about business owners? I talk to a lot of business owners that, they have a bookkeeper. What about those? And I'll go through an example of a call that I had recently with a prospect. Okay, it was a construction company. And they called me, and, I'm paraphrasing so I don't, so this doesn't last half an hour, but they said, they needed a bookkeeper. And of course, my response to that is like, okay, well, why are you looking for a bookkeeper? And they said, well, the bookkeeper I have now just isn't doing a great job. Okay, and that's great. And a lot of bookkeepers will stop there. That's the problem. They've got a bookkeeper now that's not doing a great job, and they say, okay, well, I do a great job for my clients, and I help my clients in all of these different ways. Isn't that really cool? And again, we haven't gotten to a point where we can assign a dollar amount to that problem. And that means that the problem isn't specific enough. So let's continue to ask questions and get more specific. So my question was, well, when you say they're not doing a good job, what do you mean by that? And his response was, well, I'm not getting the information I need. I'm not getting it on time. Okay, and now that's more specific. That response is definitely more specific, not getting information, not getting it on time, but I still can't assign a dollar amount to it. Okay, and so we need to ask more questions. So I say, well, give me an example of something that you're looking for, but you're not getting. Okay, and he says, well, I'm not getting any job costing reports. My margins aren't where they need to be based on the industry average. This is like a home builder. They did home builds, they did remodels, they did all of those kinds of things. So they have different jobs that they work on. And he said, well, my margins aren't where they need to be. I don't know which jobs are profitable and which ones aren't. And I said, okay, that's even more specific. Not getting job costing reports is even more specific. So we're getting there. But again, I can't assign a dollar figure to it yet. So I asked him, okay, well, so what kind of margins are you seeing? And he says, we're seeing about 20% margin. And the industry average for this type of a business is about 25%. They should be seeing about 25% margin. Okay, so now we've determined that they have a problem. They're 5%, their margins are 5% lower than they should be. Can I assign a dollar figure to that? Well, now I can. Okay, now I can. And this is a good point. to start talking about the second thing that you must be doing is you have to assign a cost to the problem. Okay, and that's what we're getting at here. So these kind of intersect. This whole conversation, just flows very, very naturally. So for the chiropractor, it was $1,600. For the construction company, I found out that their margins were 5% off. And so the final question I ask there, here I ask the question, well, okay, 8 hours is great. Let me multiply that by your hourly rate because that's time you could be spending generate revenue. Here, we've got 5% margins are off. Instead of the $200 an hour, I'm going to ask, okay, well, what's your revenue? What's your annual revenue? What are you on track for this year? What was your annual? It's January, so a great question to ask is what was your revenue last year? And the answer was $4 million. Okay, so now we've got the information we need to assign a cost. They've got gross revenue of $4 million and their margins are off by 5%. And if my math is right, that's a $200,000 a year problem. Okay, so what you'll find, well, let's step back. What you'll notice is that I'm not telling the client that their problems are costing them this much. I'm not telling them at all. I'm asking questions and they're telling me. These are their numbers. The chiropractor told me he spends 8 hours. He told me his billable rate is about $20 an hour. So he told me he has a $1,600 a month problem. The chiropractor, he told me that his margins were off by 5%, and he thinks that that's due to job costing. He's mispricing jobs. Maybe he's focusing too much on lower margin work, and he's got some higher margin work that he should be focusing a little bit more on. So his margins are off by 5% because of this problem, and he's doing $4 million a year. He told me that. I just did the math. I just multiplied. I just did the multiplication. What you'll find when you have this conversation with clients, you keep asking questions until you get more and more specific, until you can assign a dollar amount to their real problem, is that it's wild because it's silence. Because what I'll say is, so it sounds like you have a $200,000 a year problem here. Is that correct? And there will be silence. But in that silence, you will just feel that aha moment. You will feel that epiphany that they're having when they realize how big this problem is, when we actually quantify this and we make it real. Okay, not getting reports, not spending too much time on bookkeeping. Those are hard to quantify. I think there's probably, a good example is when you're trying to lose weight. One of the things that they tell you to do when you're trying to lose weight is, well, track your calories. See how much you're actually eating. And so, invariably, people will track their calories and thinking that, I'm not that far off. They'll track their calories, and then at the end of the day, they'll add them up and be like, wow, okay. I had no idea that I was consuming that amount of calories. And so now that number's become real for you, and you've clearly seen where you're at, which will help you determine where to go. So that problem now will become more real, and in doing this, this problem will become very real. It's something that they can really easily wrap their head around. And so the important thing to remember here when we talk about generating these dollar amounts is that, again, we're just doing the math. So we are restating these numbers back to them. We'll do the math and then we restate those numbers back to them. And the powerful thing here, there's really two pieces that really make this step powerful, and that's why you win or lose the business here, is that number one, walking them through this process, nobody else they get on the phone with is going to do that. is going to care enough to find the real problem. Keep asking more and more specific questions, number one. So as you do that, you're going to be flipping these psychological switches in their head and demonstrating your authority. Okay? You're spending time diagnosing their problem. Nobody does that, except for the people we respect. Lawyers, doctors diagnose problems. Those are the people that we really, really respect. Okay? Well, regardless of how you feel about lawyers, let's say doctor, but they do that. They really understand the problem. Doctors, they're going to understand the problem before they prescribe a solution. Okay, so you're flipping all these psychological switches in their head and demonstrating your authority as an advisor, as someone they trust, as someone that's going to partner with them to help them get results. Number two, they told you these numbers. Okay, and the power of that cannot be understated. When you tell them the numbers, well, when I work with clients, typically, they're off by $50,000, or the problems they have in their business cost them this much. They hear that. When you tell them the numbers, they hear that. When they tell you the numbers, they believe it. Okay, because these are their numbers. These are their numbers. Okay, so again, type comments or with any questions that you have. I'm happy to address any of the questions that you have. This here, the reason we go through this step here is because it really, not for the reasons I've mentioned already, but the real power is that it can really explode our revenue. We will be able to maximize our fees using true value pricing. Okay, we talked about that a little bit last week, and you can find additional videos on the YouTube channel about true value pricing. But now, instead of estimating a job based on hours or based on kind of the quantity of work we're going to be doing, we can assign our fees based on these numbers. Okay, so imagine a one-man band chiropractor. Okay, I've got plenty of them. I can knock out their books in a couple hours a month. Okay, and we can close their books out. I can easily charge this chiropractor $1,000 a month. Once he's had the epiphany of seeing that doing his own books is costing him $1,600. By paying me $1,000 a month, he's still making $600 in additional revenue. And that's not even to say what I can do to help him grow his business. That's just the savings he's seeing. Okay, so I can further amplify this number, the benefit of working with me, by talking about the goals that he has in his business, how we are going to be able to put together a roadmap to help him reach that. Okay, so that number can be a lot larger, but just on this alone, you can see how it makes sense for him to invest $1,000 because he's getting $1,600 back. Same thing for the construction company. I quoted the construction company $4K a month. Okay, $4K a month, $48,000 a year. That's about 25% of this, which totally makes sense. It's a $25,000, it's a $48,000 investment to get back $200,000. When you start talking in these terms, you're making it a situation for the prospect where they're just buying money, which is really cool. You've got a box with $200,000 in it. Do you want the box? You only have to pay me $48,000 for it. And that's really cool. That's where once you start to implement this and you start to get really good at asking questions and assigning the costs to those problems, you'll be getting clients excited and you'll get so many more yeses. Again, you'll be able to utilize true value pricing so that your fees are double, triple, or even quadruple what they were before, and it's a win-win for everybody. Okay, I'm not just raising my fees arbitrarily. Okay, I'm bringing the client a really, really big result. Okay, so questions. Feel free to type questions into the chat. It's when I came across this and started implementing this, it was a process, okay? It was a process. It was new information for me. In fact, the first time I saw this, I didn't have any questions because I didn't really understand it right away. So feel free to rewatch this. Feel free to let it sink in a little bit. But feel free to type into the chat if you see the value in this, or if you see or what questions you have about it, what roadblocks you feel like would prevent you from doing that. Let me just review my notes and make sure I've got everything covered here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So these are the two things that we need to be doing on every consultation. I guarantee you'll close way more, and you'll close them at higher fees as long as you, and again, we'll go over the consultation outline in another video, but giving them a fee range is really, really important. Getting a yes, a verbal yes to a fee range, and addressing any objections they have there on the call instead of going and creating a proposal that may or may not work for both parties, spending a lot of time. We're not in the proposal writing business, so we want to handle any of those issues they have with fee on this first call, because we can always walk back to the value we bring. Okay, it's much easier to do that on this call than it is after you email a proposal. Okay, so so these are the two things that you have to be doing. A quick note about this area right here. Again, this is where everything hinges. This is where the consultation call is usually won or lost, okay, which is right here. You want to stay in this phase as long as possible. Hey, Tony, I see your question here is what are good questions to ask to get to the real problem? You may have jumped on just recently, but I went through two examples, and this video will continue to stay on the YouTube channel and in the Facebook group, and you can rewatch it. But walking through those specific questions in a chiropractor example where they were doing their own books, and a construction company example where they were actually working with a bookkeeper. So you go ahead and take a look at those. Continue to ask more and more specific questions. Those were some examples there. But stay in that diagnosis phase for as long as possible. Okay, when you go to a doctor and you got your foot's tingling. Hey doc, my foot's tingling. He doesn't say, okay, well, you got a tingling foot, let's just cut it off. He's going to diagnose. He's going to do tests, he's going to ask questions, he's going to diagnose. Again, my wife being a chiropractor, I found that can be caused by like a pinched nerve in the spine. So they could do some chiropractic work, do an adjustment, relieve the issue, and guess what? You get to keep both feet. So again, doctors, they diagnose and they stay in that phase long enough until they find the real problem. Feel comfortable staying in this phase for as long as you need to get to the specific problem. In fact, as you start to implement this and get good at it, I should remind you that getting good at this, a great way to do that is to do role playing. In my mentorship program, we do a lot of role playing. So you get to a point where you're just automatic with this and it's just natural. Okay, like anything else in life, at first it's new, it's weird. You fall off the bike a million times and then finally you start getting it. Okay, and then you get good at it. And this is a skill when you're able to charge $4,000 a month for pretty much basic bookkeeping, job costing, some custom reports. I mean, it's a profitable skill that is an investment that will generate returns for the rest of your career. Role playing is really, really important for that. So we do that in my mentorship program, but if you have someone in your life that cares about you and cares about your success, role play with them as well, okay? And you'll start to get so comfortable that you'll find a specific your problem like this, because this one was that they were doing, the chiropractor example was that they were doing their own bookkeeping, okay? This one is that they had a bookkeeper, they weren't doing a good job, they weren't getting the reports they need. Great. And what else? What other problems are you having in your business? That "and what else" question opens up the possibilities of us being able to demonstrate further value that we're going to be able to add to their business. Okay, that and what else question. So you can spend a lot of time here. And again, this is where those psychological switches are flipped, where they start feeling like they're at the doctor and they're getting help. Okay, and that this person is somebody that they can trust. Bookkeepers aren't doing this. They're just not doing this. And so even if we've got people in my mentorship program, so and some of you are watching, we've got people in the program that that say, yeah, he talked to 5 other bookkeepers and he chose me even though I was the highest. And it's because of this. It's not because you've done a great job of building rapport. Hey, how about those Buccaneers, or that they're telling you about their business. So there's not a lot of, there's not a lot you can prove here. The scope is the scope. You can ask questions, but you're not going to do a lot to really set yourself apart from other bookkeepers there. You will set yourself apart from other bookkeepers here, and hopefully in a good way. If you've done this becomes an afterthought, okay? If you've done this properly, you've clearly communicated your benefit here, you've gotten it to the point where they're simply just buying money from you, then fees become an afterthought, your experience becomes an afterthought, your degrees and certifications and how tall you are and whether or not you have hair and whether it's disappearing or not, it doesn't matter. Because, again, I should just put a little text at the bottom of every video. Clients care about one thing. The only thing they care about is solving their problems. If you can clearly communicate that, you will win the business virtually every time. Okay? And this is how you can clearly communicate that. So this is where you really want to stay. This is where you can set yourself apart from other bookkeepers on the consultation call. So they can talk to 5, they can talk to 10, they can talk to however many bookkeepers they want, and they'll always choose you. Okay? So Tony, appreciate the question. Real quick before we wrap up here, if you have another question, type it into the chat or the comments. I will also be active on these videos. Like once the video is over, if you're watching the replay, feel free to comment with questions on Facebook or YouTube, and I will answer those there as well. Very cool. So with that said, I will go ahead and wrap things up. In the description on the YouTube video, okay, if you are not in the Facebook group, I encourage you to join. We've got lots of great content in there that'll help you grow your business. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you are a bookkeeper who has a business, you're working with clients already, and you're really interested in learning more of this type of material that will help you add 6 figures of bookkeeping and advisory revenue to your business within the next 6 months, you are welcome to use the link in the description to book a call with me. Okay, I have a mastermind program where I work with people who are already generating revenue. They have existing businesses. They have the service side of the business down pat, but they want help with those 5 keys: lead generation, getting a constant stream of prospects, so that you can pick and choose who you work with. Because you might be asking yourself here, well, what if they're just starting out? Well, if you have your lead generation dialed in, you don't have to work with clients like that. So you get your lead generation dialed in, you're handling consultations properly where you're closing a very high percentage and at higher fees. You get your pricing dialed in, so you're pricing as a percentage of these things. You're offering advisory services so that in addition to these things, you're able to set goals with the client and give them a roadmap to get there. So you're providing advisory type services, budgeting, forecasting, what if scenarios, modeling, things like that. And there's some really great automated tools out there that just plug right into QuickBooks that makes this process super, super easy. And again, high value, solving big problems, having a big positive impact in clients' businesses so your fees can go up. And then that 5th key is removing yourself from the business, because I don't want you making 6 figures working even 40 hours a week. I'd like to see you working 25 hours a week making 6 figures, if that. Pulling yourself out of the business, having the processes and the people in place to make that happen. Okay, so you can be the CEO and you've got systems and people that are doing great work. Okay, that's how you really sort of rise above and live that lifestyle that kind of opens you up to travel and just doing all of the things that you really, really love to do while making insane amounts of money, if you want to do that. Okay. Mid-Learning. Hey, Mid-Learning says, thanks a lot. I like your word. Clients care about you solving their problems. If you really take that to heart, in other words, if you really truly believe that the client just cares about you solving their problem, then that will open up a whole new world for you. Embrace that. You know, I work with a lot of people in my mentorship program that are worried they don't have experience, they don't have degrees, they don't have client success results, they don't have any of that stuff. And you don't need that stuff. As long as you can clearly communicate the value that you can bring to the table by having conversations like this, that's all they care about. That's it. I mean, do you think that, let's say you got two types of people. Let's say you're at an in-person networking event, which I'm not a fan of networking at all. There's so many more effective methods of generating lots and lots of leads that we get into on the YouTube channel and in the Facebook group that you don't have to do networking. Okay, I'm not a big networker. My wife had to do it to grow her chiropractic business because for some reason they tell chiropractors to go do that. She'd get up at like 5:30 in the morning on Wednesdays to go to a Marie Callender's so that she could network. And I felt so bad for her. Not so bad that I didn't just roll back over and go back to bed, but you know, I felt awful. But anyway, let's just say you're at a networking meeting and there are two bookkeepers there giving their presentations. Okay, you got one bookkeeper that says, hey, I'm Bill and I'm a CPA and I do bookkeeping for my clients. I help them make sure their books are in order so that they don't have to worry about it. I went to this school. I've been doing this for 20 years, and so I've got a lot of experience. That's great, and that will be super, super, you know, appealing. I mean, hey, somebody who has experience, that's great. Or let's say you got the second person that says, hi, I'm Sandy. I just started my bookkeeping business a year ago, and I help clients in these ways. And here are the results here are the benefits that clients see as a result of the work I do. Okay? And you talk about specific benefits and the outcomes. Obviously, you don't know enough about the clients that you're talking to if you're giving a presentation like that to get this specific, but virtually every single time, you're going to go with someone that can demonstrate the value that they'll be able to realize. The client only cares about solving their problems. If you can speak to that problem, you might have a group of business owners that you're talking to, and you might talk about some of the problems that typical business owners have and how you solve them and what the benefit, what the net effect in dollars is going to be for those people. If you direct your presentation to that, the specific problems they have and the specific benefits that you deliver, Sally or Sandy or whoever her name was is going to win that business every single time over the person with more degrees and more experience. I want to work with somebody who just gets me results. I don't care how much experience they have, and I'm willing to bet you want the same thing. Okay, so whether it's, say it's painting your house, okay? Are you looking for the painter that uses the best brushes and the best equipment? Or are you probably focused on what the end result's gonna look like? Do you want a house that, you know, the attention to detail is perfect, like the results? Who are you gonna choose? Okay, you're probably gonna choose results. Okay, I got a question from someone on Facebook that says, what if the client doesn't know his problem cost? Well, we ask questions to help draw that information out of the client. It's all about asking good questions. This is an opportunity where, and we'll do in future videos, we'll do role-playing, live role-playing, because the client will know the answer to some of these questions. They all have problems. Every problem we are able to assign a cost to by asking the right question. So another comment says, what if he doesn't know his 5% margin problem? Well, maybe he's got another problem. That was just an example. Okay, so he may have another problem, and that's where that conversation will go. He may say, well, I'm not making as much money as I should. Okay, well, how much money are you making now? What's your profit look like? How much money do you feel like you should be making, given the time and effort and the expenses that you incur in the business? Well, maybe I'm making $500,000 a year now. I really feel like I should be doing closer to $1 million. Okay, well, now you got a $500,000 a year problem on your hands. Okay, asking more and more specific questions. When you get specific and you get to those dollar amounts, you know you've gotten specific enough. Okay, it's all about asking more and more specific questions. Okay, I can ask that client, what do you feel like is preventing you from realizing that profit, that $1 million profit? Let's dive into this. Let's keep asking more and more specific questions. Veronica says, what would be good questions to ask for a prospect who calls saying they need someone to set up and begin running payroll for them? Well, Veronica, let me know if this is a client who is brand new, you're just setting it up and then they're going to be doing the work, or if this is like a monthly recurring engagement. Because I'm not, and you will get to a point where you're not working with clients who just need a setup or just need training. That's good work. I mean, it's work we can charge a great fee for, but what's better is that monthly recurring revenue. Okay, that monthly recurring revenue, you get to a point where that's all you're going to be looking to work with. And so a client may call and say, yeah, I'm just looking for somebody to get my QuickBooks set up, kind of teach me a little bit about how to do it, set up payroll, and that's really it. I'll take it from there. They're probably not even going to get to the point where they can book a call with me. Okay, because when you get your lead generation dialed in, typically what we want to do before they can book a phone call is they fill out like a quick online form. Okay, it just bounces from question to question. We ask them questions about their business, how big it is, how long they've been in business, what their revenue looks like, those types of questions. Whether or not they're looking for someone to help partner with them to help them grow their business on a monthly basis. If they don't answer those questions properly, they get directed to a page that says, hey, thanks for reaching out, but it doesn't look like we're a good fit to work together at this time. Okay. And then if they do answer those questions properly, they get to go to my booking page so they can book that call with me. And when you've got your lead generation dialed in, you're generating so many of those leads, you don't want to be on the phone with prospects that are not qualified. Okay, they've got to be qualified, and you want to weed them out, because the more time you spend on the phone with people who are not your ideal clients is time that you're missing out on generating revenue. Okay, so there's that opportunity cost if we're on the phone with people. So you'll get to a point where you've got so many leads coming in, if you dial in your lead generation, that you can do that. Okay, so Veronica, you said brand new and monthly engagement. Well, that's great, the brand new and monthly engagement. If this was someone who's brand new and just starting out, again, they probably wouldn't make it to the point where they got on the phone. Okay, they probably wouldn't make it where they got on the phone because again, there's so many people out there, if you've got your lead generation working properly, that need help and have bigger problems to solve. The bigger problem they have for me to solve, the bigger my fees can be. Okay, so I probably wouldn't get on the phone with those people who just are brand new. But Veronica, I will say this, if you're just starting out, like if you're just starting your bookkeeping business and you're like, well, I've got time. I'm still working on my lead generation and all of that, all of those efforts. So I would like to work with people who are just starting out. I know they might be smaller, but that's okay because I'm just starting out. Well, then what you're going to want to do is that instead of focusing on the problem, they probably still have some problems in their business getting set up. So we want to dive into problems, but we have an opportunity to focus more on their goals. Okay, ask them what their goal for revenue is. If they're just starting out, what's your goal for revenue in the next year? Where you're at zero now, where would you like to be? Well, I'd like to be at $250,000. Okay, well now we've got a $250,000 problem because you're not there yet, and they don't have a plan. Okay, so now you can quote your fees based off of that $250,000. Now I will say for people that are just starting, Our capacity to help them is a little bit, it could be argued that it's greater because they've got no path, but they also, may have funding issues, cash flow issues, those types of things. So our capacity to help them is still pretty big, but the things that we'll be doing for them are going to be quite small when we're talking about actual tasks. So instead of charging, for example, for this client, 25%. For clients like that, you're going to use something much lower. You're going to be kind of in the 5% range. For true value pricing, I like to see you in about 15 to 25% range, okay? But for like new businesses, small businesses, you're going to be in a much smaller range. But again, let's quantify that, because I want to get them thinking about where they want to be, that $250,000 goal that they want to hit. If I can get them focused on that, then my fees are going to seem like a good investment to help them get there. Okay, so those are some things to think about. You'll get to a point where you're not on the phone with small businesses or new businesses, but if you are interested in working with those types of businesses, now the conversation, in addition to diagnosing problems, the problems they're having with their business, we're going to focus on some goals. Getting to a point where we can assign dollar figures to the problems, and in this case, some of the goals that they'd like to hit. Okay, Veronica, let me know if you have additional questions on that. On Facebook, comment says, have you ever had, I think I can show these on the screen, which would be kind of cool. Hey, check it out. Have you ever had a scenario where you can't cost the problem? When I first started out, yeah, because it takes asking the right questions. And asking the right questions is a skill that you just have to hone over time, okay? And what I would suggest in terms of how you can start implementing this is start asking one more question than you would normally ask, okay? If it's a challenge for you to get all the way here, again, role-playing helps with anybody you have around you who cares about you and your success. That will help, and I highly recommend that. But ask one more question than you would normally ask. Okay, so for example, for the construction company, if they were to come back and say, they said, well, I've got a bookkeeper, but they're not doing a good job. And you feel comfortable saying, okay, well, when you say they're not doing a good job, what do you mean by that? And they say, well, I just don't get the reports I need, nothing's on time. If you're comfortable stopping there normally, I encourage you to just reach out and ask that one more question. One more question, even if it's the wrong question, okay? Getting in the habit of throwing yourself into the ring and doing the best you can, and then after the call, doing kind of a debrief and going over the call and thinking through some of the questions you asked and some of the things that maybe you could have done better is such a valuable exercise. It's an exercise that could be worth millions of dollars to you. Because if you get really, really good at this, again, you could add 6 figures of revenue in 6 months. And you could continue to repeat that over the course of your career, okay? And I don't care if it's adding 6 figures of revenue in 6 months or a year or whatever it is, but then you multiply that out by the number of years you're going to be in business, and this is a skill that could be worth millions of dollars to you. So ask one more question that you normally would, okay? So in that scenario, it was like, I'm not getting the reports I'm looking for, so ask the question, okay, give me an example of a report you'd like to see, or some of the information that you're not getting. Okay, that's a really great way of doing that. So at the beginning, yes, I had scenarios where I couldn't assign a cost because I didn't know the right questions I could ask to get there. But in time, you will absolutely get there. And again, this is a great investment, a time investment. Learning this that's going to pay big dividends for you. Let's see. Facebook user says, what is the cost of creating lead generations? Well, I go over lead generation in other videos. There are organic free methods that are good to have to pick up kind of the low-hanging fruit that's out there. But if you really want to scale quickly and add 6 figures of revenue, then you really want to be a little bit more proactive. Okay, so we're talking about things like being proactive on LinkedIn, being proactive with Facebook ads. LinkedIn can be can cost little to nothing. Facebook ads, there's an investment there, but again, it's an investment. If we can't understand that there's an investment, to be made, like it's going to cost us something to either learn this material, or it's going to cost us something to utilize Facebook ads or set up a sales funnel, but we're going to see this huge value in return. If we can't see that for ourselves, we do not stand much of a chance in helping clients see it. I will say that. In order to be doing this, you've got to see the value in what you do. You've got to see the value that you're able to create for clients. Otherwise, clients won't see it. Okay? And a great way to determine whether or not you are able to see the value is that how you work day to day? Are you able to see the value of making investments in yourself? Whether it's mentorship, whether it's lead generation with Facebook ads, or a sales funnel, or LinkedIn, and having automated tools, or a VA that's helping you with these efforts. Because again, if you do, then you stand a really good chance of helping your prospects see this. Okay, so but the cost it varies. You can get clients on Facebook for the cost to acquire a client on Facebook is in the $750 range. So you pay $750 to get a client that can pay you twice that monthly. What kind of a great return is that? That's a huge return. It's a massive return. Again, you're buying money. How about someone who wants to niche in nonprofits? Well, I'm not a nonprofit expert, I will say that, but that nonprofit still has problems that are costing them money. They always want to boost contributions and donations. They always want to minimize expenses. Okay, they have goals. So in addition to those problems, they have goals. What are those goals? Okay, and so again, it's all about the questions. Not a lot changes about the consultation, but in terms of the path to get them there, I'm not a nonprofit expert, but they have problems, they have goals. We have to focus on those. Veronica says, so once you get a dollar figure, you should quote at least 15% and disregard the pricing calculator. Again, if we're working with a business that has a real problem that we can solve, I like to see you in the 15 to 25% range. If they're new, you can go a lot lower than that or not work with those clients at all. My last video, the live I did last week, talks about the 3 pricing scenarios, okay? Hourly, flat fee, and the true value pricing, which is where we're at here, true value pricing. The pricing calculator, I talked about this, so watch that video, but really quickly, it does a good job of developing a price based on the inherent value of what we do. Okay, we have big value in what we do just inherently by doing a good job. Okay, business owner doesn't have to do it. They can focus on revenue. We give them the information they need to make good decisions. We're capturing everything, so their taxes are going to be accurate as they can be. We don't have complete control of their taxes, so it has inherent value. So the calculator is a great place to be. You've got the hourly, which is where we don't want to be. We've got the flat fee, which the calculator kind of helps us develop that flat fee that's also got a value component to it. And then we've got true value. And it's an evolution. Like I talked about last week, there's an evolution there. A lot of people start at hourly, and that's totally fine, okay? But my goal is to help everybody jump to true value pricing as quickly as possible. So you start at hourly, you realize, well, that's not really working out. That doesn't make sense on a lot of different levels that I talked about before. Flat fee makes sense. I can bill in advance, like that makes sense. And the calculator gives us that security of knowing that we've got a value component there, and then true value. There's an evolution. The calculator's great as training wheels, and as you grow and get more comfortable, you'll ditch those training wheels and you'll embrace true value pricing, and you'll go to the moon. That's what happens. But good question, Veronica. On Facebook, I'm saying, do you do anything in particular to get commitments or literal buy-in before those clients go to their CPA who says, oh yeah, we can do that for you for 1/10 of the price, even though we haven't offered it until now? Yeah, well, there is a huge value in living here. My response to that, because obviously if I went through this and they were super stoked, one of the things we do want to do on our consultations on our consultations is get a verbal yes to a range after we provide a range. Because if I can get a verbal yes, that gives me the assurance I need that I'm not wasting a bunch of time putting together a proposal that doesn't make sense. Okay, so there's huge value in getting that buy-in. If they took this and were excited about it, and then they had a conversation happened before, because if you do these things properly, you're in great shape. But if they then went to their CPA who said I can do it for 1/10 of the price, and I heard that, because I'm going to schedule a follow-up call here too. That's another step on the consultation. I'm going to schedule a follow-up call. On that follow-up call where they said, yeah, it sounded really great what you did, but my CPA said that he could do that for 1/10 of the price. My question to that person would be, I'm curious why your CPA wasn't proactive enough to offer to do something like this. In my experience, the CPAs for the clients I work with, unfortunately, they process tax returns. They do as many tax returns as possible. And they do a good job of that. They do a really good job of that. But they don't have the time or capacity to really dive into the books and help business owners with their problems. And so I differentiate myself by being proactive. When I see an opportunity in your business or a threat in your business, I'm going to capitalize on that. I'm going to bring that to your attention, and we're going to be proactive. I'm afraid that if your CPA wasn't proactive enough to have this conversation with you already, how proactive do you think they'll be when they recognize issues or opportunities? Okay? I'd like to hear that. I'd like to hear their answer to that. That really gets at the heart of saying, without saying it in these specific terms, well, why weren't they already doing it then? Don't they care about you? It's that simple. And you're saying, not that I'm speaking from experience that happened to you, so maybe it did happen to you, but again, that's what I would say. That's the conversation I would have, okay? So let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. I actually have a coaching call for my mastermind starting in a few minutes here. So again, be sure to spend a lot of time here. Be sure to role play with anybody that you know that cares about you and your success, so that you can get really good at these questions, so that you can start feeling comfortable diagnosing the real problem, asking all those questions, and then assigning a cost to it. You do those two things and you'll knock it out of the park. Okay? Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Join the Facebook group for more content. Any questions you have on the replay, shoot them here. There's also a link to book a call with me if you feel like you want to add 6 figures of revenue in the next 6 months through a mentorship program. Okay? Otherwise, I'm going to keep pumping out really great content that I hope you guys can use. Report back your results here because nothing makes me happier than saying something that flips the switch for somebody. So again, every Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time, we go live in the Facebook group and the YouTube channel. So until next time, I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.